It was just after dawn over the Red Sea, March 22nd, 2025. The sun had barely begun to warm the horizon, but the calm waters stretched endlessly, deceptively serene. The USS Gerald R. Ford cut through the waves, a 100,000-ton behemoth of steel and power, nuclear reactors humming quietly beneath its deck. On this morning, the sea might have seemed peaceful to anyone watching from afar, but aboard the carrier, there was an underlying tension, the kind born from years of experience patrolling contested waters. The first sign of trouble came as a subtle flicker on the radar screens in the Combat Information Center. A blip, small, fast, and closing. Nothing on the horizon yet, nothing on the radio, just a whisper of danger encoded in green dots on glowing displays. The officers leaned forward, reading every vector, every altitude, every rate of closure. Then another. 2 contacts, approaching at speed. The Ford didn't flinch, didn't slow, didn't change course. Discipline had been drilled into every sailor aboard, and the message was clear. Stay the course. Let the threat reveal itself. Moments later, the horizon shimmered, heat bending the light. 2 Venezuelan K-8 attack jets emerged from the haze, cutting across the morning calm barely 2,000 feet above the water. Their engines screamed, a raw mechanical challenge in the quiet Caribbean air. No radio call, no warning, just aggression. They banked hard across the carrier's bow, wings casting long shadows over the steel deck. The stunt was meant to intimidate, to make the Ford and its crew flinch. But intimidation only works when the target reacts. And the Ford didn't. From the bridge, the commanding officer observed through binoculars, calm and precise. Maintain course, he said. It wasn't stubbornness. It wasn't bravado. It was doctrine. The carrier was a symbol of power, not panic. One misstep, one overreaction, and an international incident could ignite before anyone realized what had happened. Below deck, in the Combat Information Center, air controllers were already tracing every move, their eyes locked on infrared feeds that revealed the truth, empty hard points. These jets carried no weapons. This wasn't an attack, it was theater, a dangerous game of dare. But dares at sea have a sharp edge. One miscalculation, one split-second error, and this simple flyby could become far more than a show of bravado. And the Ford's crew knew that better than anyone. 2 minutes passed, and the radar picture shifted. A second set of blips appeared, vectors bearing 217, climbing rapidly. 4 contacts now, converging on the carrier strike group. The operations officer leaned in, fingers flying across the keyboard, confirming IFF negative. The jets were not responding to hails. Silence from the other side, but inside the Ford CIC, the calm was deliberate. Panic had no place here. Every sailor knew their role, every officer their procedure. The Navy trains for this exact moment, 100 times over, until instinct and protocol converge perfectly. Above deck, Air Wing 8 sprang into action. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets were prepped for launch, yellow shirts waving them into position. Catapult crews crouched, ready. Engines roared, metal shrieked against the air, and in seconds, the Hornets tore off the bow, climbing into the Caribbean sky, streaking toward the incoming contacts. Their task was clear: intercept, identify, and if possible, de-escalate without escalation. The pilot's eyes scanned every radar return, every angle of approach, every glint of sun on the Venezuelan aircraft. Rules of engagement were defensive only, but precision and vigilance were mandatory. Back in the operations center, the bridge recommended tightening the escort screen, bringing the destroyers Mason and Thomas Hudner forward. Approval came instantly. Maintain speed, maintain heading. The Ford would not flinch. To an untrained eye, it might have looked like defiance. To the Navy, it was posture, a carefully choreographed signal of strength. You don't yield for noise, you hold your line. By 0626, the Hornets were climbing through 15,000 feet. The lead pilot, callsign Viper 1, scanned the radar returns. 4 contacts, tight spacing, altitude increasing. Control, Viper 1, confirm bandits, he said. Positive ID, Venezuelan K-8S, came the reply. Rules of engagement, defensive only. Roger, keep it clean. Shadow, monitor. document. The sky was a chessboard, and each pilot a calculated piece. The K-8S closed in, dipping low enough that their shadows rippled across the ocean, engines leaving trails of heat and turbulence. One maneuvered steeply, banking over the formation, pushing limits at high speed. The Hornets held fast, shadowing like ghosts, collecting every piece of data: flight path, altitude, vector, rate of closure. Below, the Ford's Spy-3 radar painted the sky in digital precision, feeding the Hornet's helmet displays with a live stream of every move. The carrier was silent, its crew composed, yet every system was alert, every sensor active, every missile turret in standby. Then the lead K-8 Dove. Inverted, low, engines screaming, heading directly toward the carrier group. The second followed, cutting through the sky like a blade. From the bridge, it looked reckless, almost suicidal. Range 1.2 miles. Weapons systems stood ready, but no command was given. Discipline was the ultimate weapon. Hold your line, the captain's presence seemed to say. Panic is contagious. Control is power. Viper 1 and 2 followed, keeping tight, cameras recording every angle. The K-8S passed the destroyer Mason at less than 600 feet, wake turbulence rocking the ship. The Hornets did not react offensively. They maintained a shadow posture, waiting, watching, documenting. Every deviation logged, every heat signature saved. One wrong move and catastrophe would follow. The sky hung in tense suspension. A few seconds stretched like hours. Then, almost anticlimactically, the K-8S pulled up and banked away, engines fading toward the southern horizon. Calm returned, but discipline remained. The Ford held its course, 20 knots, heading north-northwest. Minutes later, a faint radar spike appeared. One Venezuelan jet had briefly pinged the carrier group with targeting radar, a deliberate act of aggression recorded in real time. Still, no retaliation. No flare, no evasive turn. Just meticulous logging, precise documentation, every detail archived for analysis. In this silence, power was evident. The Ford didn't need to respond with violence. Its restraint sent a message louder than any missile could. Control, judgment, discipline. By mid-morning, Venezuelan state television aired grainy footage claiming their jets had forced the American carrier to retreat. The world would see propaganda, a distorted narrative. The Navy saw the truth. The Ford never budged. The jets had crossed dangerous thresholds, but the carrier and its strike group had executed their duties with flawless precision. Discipline, training, and calm had neutralized the threat without a shot fired. Inside the Pentagon, analysts replayed the footage frame by frame, cataloging maneuvers, radio calls, and flight profiles. They dissected intent, assessed risks, and extracted every piece of data for intelligence. What the Venezuelans intended as a show of force had instead produced a treasure trove of operational insights. Every unsafe pass, every aggressive vector, every missed communication was logged, analyzed, and archived. The US Navy had turned a potential confrontation into a strategic advantage. The story here is not about missiles or jets. It is about judgment under pressure, about the restraint required to project power without unnecessary escalation. The USS Gerald R. Ford represents cutting-edge naval capability, yes, but its greatest weapon is the discipline of its crew. Technology can detect, track, and fire, but judgment ensures that every action aligns with strategic goals. In moments like these, calmness is power, and silence can be louder than any roar of engines or flares. This encounter demonstrated the subtlety of modern naval power. The K-8 jets had wanted to provoke, to test boundaries. The Ford demonstrated that power is not just measured in speed or firepower, but in control. The carrier strike group projected dominance without firing a shot, signaling to the world that professionalism, discipline, and precise execution outweigh reckless aggression. In the Caribbean sky that morning, no one needed to be hurt for the message to be clear. A US carrier doesn't flinch. It observes, it records, and it dominates. As the Venezuelans faded into the horizon, the carrier maintained its steady course. Data feeds continued to log every detail of the encounter. Analysts, pilots, and commanders processed the information, turning raw observation into actionable intelligence. The carrier's silence became a strategic statement, a testament to the training and professionalism that defines US naval operations. Any adversary watching would understand the same lesson. Power at sea is not just about missiles or jets, but about timing, patience, and the ability to hold a line without surrendering control. By midday, the calm had returned. The Caribbean waters stretched blue and endless. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like nothing happened. But aboard the Ford, every sailor knew they had participated in a masterclass of restraint and tactical superiority. The Venezuelans had tried to intimidate, but they had only confirmed the Ford's readiness, the precision of its systems, and the discipline of its crew. And in that disciplined calm, the carrier communicated louder than any radio call ever could. Power is measured not by what you fire, but by what you choose not to fire. Now, imagine yourself in that cockpit, Viper 1 or 2, watching foreign jets dive recklessly toward your carrier. What would you do? Trust the rules of engagement and maintain your line? Or react instinctively to a perceived threat? That choice, calm, measured, disciplined, is what separates chaos from control. And in the case of the USS Gerald R. Ford, it was made perfectly, every time, proving once again that real strength lies not in aggression, but in judgment. The Red Sea morning faded into a Caribbean noon, waves rolling, engines humming, systems monitoring silently. The world would see headlines and footage. Politicians would debate intent. But the Ford and its crew had already written the definitive report, in real time, in discipline, and in quiet power. In this environment, restraint is an art, and the USS Gerald R. Ford painted it flawlessly across the sky that day.